Hello and welcome everyone to this session, Our Global Family. My name is Deborah Parker. I'm the Chief Executive of Cinema for All. Many of you will know that we used to be known by our legal name, the British Federation of Film Societies. And one of the nicest things I remember discovering when I first joined this organisation was that not only were there hundreds of amazing film societies and community cinemas around the UK, but there were thousands more across the world. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by the president of the International Federation of Film Societies, or as it's also known, the Federación Internacional de Cine Club, Joao Paulo Macedo. Welcome, Juan Paulo.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to address this conversation with you and all the members of the British Federation of Film Societies. That's how I at first knew the Cinema for All organization. And it's a pleasure for me to join you in this annual conference.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to have you. Thank you very much for giving up your time to talk to us today. I suppose it'd be really interesting for our members to understand a little about you and your background. How did you first get involved with film societies?
Well, that's a long story that I will try to make it very short. My father, and some friends, during the dictatorship in Portugal, were members of a film society of my birth town, that is Braga, in the north of Portugal. And in a way, when I was a kid, I took part in some of the activities back in early 70s. They have some meetings, they screen some films, they discuss films in French. And there was a very interesting approach also to cinema for kids, mainly Czechoslovakia animation at the time, because the embassy had a great cooperation with film societies in Portugal. Later on, I was at university and the cinemas closed a tower in the town that I was studying, Deborah. And I had a meeting with the headmaster of the university, with the rector and some other friends. We joined a group of people that decided to take profit of the facilities at the university, and we founded the University of Deborah Film Society. So that is very synthetically how I am a film society guy. Since kid, with my father and his friends, and later on at university, we organized a group that loved cinema. And as there was no cinemas in town, the film society was for maybe 13, 14 years that I was there in town. Was one of the most dynamic film societies in the country, because we were the cinema in town. So it was very important for me, that experience.
That's really interesting to hear that, because I think it's quite similar maybe in the UK, that a film society or a community cinema might be the only access to cinema, film, quality film, different sorts of film that people have. So it's really interesting to hear that you were able to access that even as quite a young person. So could you tell us a little bit more then about film societies in Portugal and maybe the history? Obviously,
yeah, well,
got a lot of time.
It's a very long story. The oldest film society in Portugal is Cine Club do Porto, or Porto Film Society, that was founded 75 or 76, almost 76 years ago. So it's a long story, longer than the International Federation of Film Societies, and it was a tradition that during the dictatorship in Portugal was quite important. In a way, the film societies up to 1958 were the only spaces of freedom during the dictatorship. The way we can discuss, or people at the time could discuss the films, were the only possible to access international films, even with the censorship, sometimes with the cooperation with the film society, with the embassies and film institute, international film institutes. It was possible to get access to other cinematographies than the ones that at the time also. It was mostly American films, some national production films, and very limited choices. So it was always in the film societies, there is always this aim to get access to more films, to the diversity, to the cultural diversity of cinema and film. And that's one of the points that were quite important during that period. And now they became again with the same importance. There was in a period, 58 was a very important year, but up to 58 there was like 63 film societies in the country. Some of them very small, some others with quite importance. But up to in 1958, the dictatorship decided that film societies have to follow certain rules. And by definition, we don't like rules. And there was at the time some of the film societies, a large number, that didn't accept those rules, so they have to close their activities. Later on, in the 60s, when we started, there was the starting of the more or less at the same time that was the colonial war in the African colonies of Portugal. More or less at the same time, it started here in Portugal, the new cinema, new age cinema, with a film that was mostly funded by the Film Society members. That was Dom Roberto, and it was from 61, 62. And the Film Societies organized to buy in advance a ticket for the film to finance the production of that film. And that is amazing. It's the only film that I know that was a cooperative of the public, of the audience, that financed the film.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's brilliant,
so
isn't it?
There is lots of episodes like this in our history of film societies.
It's so exciting, isn't it? And it's so nice to hear, again, some of those similarities. I mean, I don't quite know whether there was the similar sort of, film societies financing productions in the UK, but there's certainly always been that sort of political edge as well, and having a very, the focus on telling stories or wanting to hear stories that are not being told elsewhere, finding films that maybe you're not going to find in commercial avenues. So I think it's, the last few years, it's remained quite stable, with film societies showing probably about a quarter of their program as British films. And then maybe another quarter will be foreign language films and world cinema. What's the picture like then in Portugal?
I think that is more or less the same. The film societies have very good connections with the production, which is very important. If you don't have a distributor in the middle, it's more easy to access the films. For the films that have commercial distribution, of course, film societies go to the distributor and pay a fee for the exhibition. But mostly film societies have a program that is supported by the Institute of Cinema, that is, it's called Network, Alternative Network of Exhibition. And by this contract with the Institute of Cinema, film societies commit themselves to have an exhibition, at least 60% of European films, 30% of national films, and 60% of European or Latin American films. So this is the goal of the Institute of Cinema and the film societies, because by this we have access to enormous diversity of films. At the same time, we can include in these programs films from countries known as low production countries within these quotas, which means that for instance, screen an Iranian film or Nepalese film with the same conditions that we screen an American film or English or Portuguese. So mainly the film societies are connected with this, with education through cinema, and in some of our film societies in Portugal, we have also small production nucleus, meaning that they have a small production of animation films, children's films, documentary films, and so on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I guess, do you think then that film societies, community cinemas in Portugal have had sort of an impact on the types of films that have been made in Portugal, and supported filmmaking in that way, and sort of helped develop film culture?
In a way, yes. Most of the filmmakers that came from the new cinema back in the 60s were people that came from the film societies. I can remember some names like Eugênio Souza, that was the director of Dom Roberto that I told before. I can remember Fernando Lopes, António Pedro Vasconcelos, a producer that was quite important, that was Henrique Espírito Santo. So there is lots of people that came from the film societies and started to organize in order to make films. I must let you know that some of these people also, by coincidence, the Portuguese television was founded back in 1957. And some of these people were sent to London and to Paris, to London Film School and to Paris, to study cinema and to prepare themselves as professionals for the television. Sometimes with the support of the national television, public television. And when they came back, of course, with the influence of the 60s in Paris or in London, the ideas were completely different from a closed country that was under colonial war, under dictatorship, and so on. So most of the people that make films from the 60s, 70s, 80s, up to 90s, most of them were people coming from film societies. Manuel de Oliveira, for instance, that was the oldest director in activity in the world. He made his first film back in 1931, and the last one, I don't know, it was 104 years. So it was very recent years. He died in 2015, so maybe 2012 or 13. It was the most ancient director in the world. And he used to say, I had a conversation with him in the festival of the International Federations of Film Societies. And he was thanking for a career prize that we decided to award him. It was the Don Quixote Award Lifetime Achievement back in 2006. And in a conference for the film societies, he told something like that. Look, I didn't do much for the film societies. Sometimes I lent some of my films without charging for them to exhibit. So even a guy like this that was completely a part of the film society movement have a great connection with the film societies.
I just want to say as well that the Don Quixote Prize is a prize that's given out by IFFS juries, isn't it? And I guess they have lifetime achievement awards as well. So how did you then get involved or hear about the IFFS? And I think many of our members may be surprised to hear that there even is an international federation. So what sort of things does it do as well? Would be really interesting.
I can tell you it was in the 8th of April of 2001. It was Porto, European Capital of Culture, and there was a Congress of the International Federation of Film Societies in Porto. I was at the time representing my film society, University of Évora Film Society, at the Portuguese Federation of Film Society. And it's curious because our film society was founded in January, and so 3 months later we have this General Assembly. And I took part in that General Assembly that was together with the International Federation of Film Societies. So that's how I met many people from different countries, and I have the opportunity to know about the International Federation of Film Societies and its activities.
Yeah, I think the first, I mean, I've had lots of email when I first joined. There's lots of emails with different members of the international community, particularly the Northern European. I think
yes.
The members' interest. The UK is part of the Nordic group. So with countries like Denmark and Sweden and Estonia and Ireland, we're all part of that group. And then that group is part of, obviously, the International Federation. And then the first time I got to meet members from maybe India and the Middle East and Russia was, I think, a few years ago when there was a General Assembly in Ostia, just outside of Rome. And it was such a wonderful atmosphere. I don't know if you were there. I can't remember seeing you there, but there were lots and lots of people there, weren't there? And it's so lovely to have that sense of community on that global scale then. So how do we then influence or support maybe individual film societies to maybe work together or to cooperate? Be interesting to hear about that.
Yes, I was not present at that General Assembly in Italy, with great loss of mind, because it's always these gatherings are always, as you said, quite important, and the atmosphere, even if we disagree and have huge discussions among us, but at the end we share a glass of wine and have some cool chats and so on. But what is, and I think that is democracy working. That is quite important. One thing that for me is, on my point of view, is interesting, is that through the International Federation, through the different groups of the International Federation, or through the International Federation itself to connect with other countries, we can work together so many things. And I think that the challenge is not for us, the executive committee, to make a proposal to our members. What is challenging for me, and what I think is important, that is enriching for our work, is to get demands from the different members. And that is really one of the aspects that I think, and today we are talking face to face. Some years ago it was not possible, But nowadays we can work distantly together, and that is the point that I think is quite important. There are some experiences already. For instance, FAR, Film Society, and had the Cine Club in Ecuador, the Ecuador Federation of Film Societies, with a film society in town. They have very good experience exchanging programs. For instance, there was a Portuguese film that was screened in Ecuador, and some Ecuadorian films that were screened here. Afterwards, after the films, it was possible to have a discussion with the director of the film, with the actors or something, and this is a kind of experience that we can share. There are lots of experiences also on cinema and education through cinema, non-formal education through cinema is something that we have amazing experiences all over the world. I'm sure also in the UK, some of the members have activities with kids and young people. And this is something that is quite important. I had one experience many years ago, back in 2002 or something like that. That was for the very first time to screen Buster Keaton's films to kids as a side program in the films in the festival that I was festival director at the time, a short film festival, and it was amazing to see the reaction of the kids to a black and white film with a guy making crazy things, and for me that was like, whoa, because most of the kids never ever have seen a film on black and white film, silent movies. So I think this is the kind of education that we can work together to share experiences. For instance, to share some guy that works a lot with animation films, a Portuguese guy and a British guy or girl, no matter, someone that come to Portugal or go to UK and work together in a workshop for kids, for instance, or for young people. These kind of things we can, I think, we can challenge ourselves to do something different. Everything changes every day, so even our way to work, our way to communicate during this pandemic, for me it was crazy, but it is quite amazing the way we can do things at distance.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you don't have all the traveling and expense of that, to have a meeting, to have a general assembly. Wow, that costs thousands of pounds probably to bring people in from all over the world. But yeah, just talking about those collaborations, I think that's really such an important thing for us as individual country federations to try and help facilitate. I was in Norway last year for a general assembly there and met many Norwegian groups and actually help facilitate something between an Oslo-based film society and a film society based in London, who were doing sort of similar but complementary things, who really wanted to have a conversation about how they were engaging their audience. So yeah, there are lots of ways that we can help sort of facilitate and nurture those conversations for our members as well, really. So yeah, it's quite interesting, I think, as well in the UK, and I'm not quite sure what your experience maybe is of this on a global scale, but there's a sort of debate that we had at our conference last year about whether, as Cinema for All, we should focus on film or on community? And I think the general consensus was, well, it's sort of both. So you're smiling, so I'm sure you have a lot you want to say about that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. There is, and I'm in the both sides of cinema because I work in a production company and I'm also a film society activist. So this kind of knowledge also gives me some background information that is quite important, I think, for the audiences, for the members of film societies. It's curious because apart music, cinema is the only collective art, form of art. We need a team to make a film. And it's so sad, and I had that experience sometimes that I was alone in a cinema. It's so sad to be alone in a cinema. And if you are in a cinema together with other people, your emotions and your reactions take another scale. Oh, that's the key. Cinema is connected with people, with the collective experience, with watching film in a screening room. Although there are lots of experiences outside the screening room, our work as film societies, it's not only in the screening room, it's also outside, so it's also a community thing. There is this, and I think I agree completely with this sentence, that is, everything you do is a political thing, in the sense of community, of it has connections with everyone around you. So in that aspect, I think that our work as film societies is really both. It's cinema, but it's people. I watched so many experiences of how a film society can change people's life. That is really amazing. And in our countries, we don't have the opportunity sometimes, although there are lots of very difficult situations in the UK, very difficult situations, social problematic situations in our countries. But we can't compare these situations with the same or similar ones that happen in Brazil, in a big city like São Paulo or Rio de Janeiro or Manaus, or the ones that happen in Bangladesh or whatever, Tunisia or Egypt. We have so much luck to have our lives like we have, even if we complain every day, but we are so lucky that we can't imagine. Just let me tell you one experience for me. It was really amazing. Back in 2009, I was curator of a showreel of Portuguese films in the Mostra of Portuguese Films in Manaus, together with a local producer. And we are screening at the university, at the theater, and house of music or something like that, auditoriums in the center of town. And I challenged them, okay, let's screen this film outside in front of the theater for the people that gathers in the square in the afternoon. And two young girls came to us asking if we can show that film for a program they will have the next Saturday, that was 2 or 3 days in advance. And the work that those girls were doing with a non-governmental organization, together with officials from the Interior Minister, was going to a favela, to one of the communities around Manaus, to census the people and to go to the cinema. Every kid must have his ID card or a proof that was registered, even if it was that day. And for a screening room, a screening of short animation films, Brazil get in that day 308 new citizens, kids around 8, 10 that don't have even an ID card. So this is for me the importance of a community work with cinema, and through cinema to reach another goal in our role in society.
Yeah, so this was maybe groups of people that were involved with film societies in Brazil then, yeah, is that right?
Yeah, I had other very similar experiences in the neighborhoods of Rio de Janeiro. Also, all the kids that were connected with the group of film society, dance, music, and theater, all those kids, none of those kids, for instance, had drug problems in the next years. So through culture, through cinema, you can make changes around you. And that is the goal that I saw there. I cooperate with some of these projects, and it is really amazing how it can change. I can't remember exactly the town, but in Brazil also, there was another film society that they were in a community center. Not only the film society itself, at the beginning it was only cinema, but they have a school, a nursery, a house for retirement house, and a school, artistic school for young kids. And at the beginning, it was only a film society. So I think the changes that it make in the community are quite important, and we must be aware of that. That is quite an important responsibility that we have.
Yeah. Were you in Bangladesh recently as well, or was that a few years ago?
No, it was quite recently, last February. In fact, I came back. I went to Nepal and then to Bangladesh, and my travel back to Berlin, to the International Film Festival in Berlin, it was like running from the pandemic that was starting back in China. It was. I had a conference with film society members in Bangladesh, and our colleagues in the federation gathered a quite important number of people for that conference, which surprised me a lot. My expectation, because of all the situation, my expectation was very low, but at the end there was some dozens of people there, and it was really amazing, the exchange and how I learned from that moment there. And some weeks later, of course, we exchanged contacts, and I have some young people that organize a small film festival, for instance, in Dhaka. They started when the pandemic affected Bangladesh. They have the space for the screenings, but they decide to use it as a community kitchen, giving food to the neighborhoods that are going through a very difficult situation. And in a moment, from a moment to another, in a week or 2 weeks, for instance, they have a queue of drivers of sorry, I missed the word now, but the rickshaw drivers that went to that street to get some food, and it was amazing how these young guys and girls in early 20s they create a movement around this necessity. It was a need to get to an answer to the community, and it happened. That is the kind of experiences that is touching at the same time, but it's the importance of the relation that you create with your community.
Absolutely, yeah. Quite a few of our members have done fundraisers or screenings in aid of food banks in the UK to support local people that are going through food poverty. So yeah, it's very similar. There seems to be an essence of film society people. There's a sort of a connectivity, isn't there, that sort of is the same almost around the globe. People really care.
Yes, when you know people, not only at work, not only at school, not only at the street, but when you know really people, is through your culture and his culture and interaction of these two different cultures, two different backgrounds. Through cinema, I believe that we can see ourselves in a mirror, but also to see the others and learn from it. I think that I'm not a psychoanalyst, but I think that there is some kind of influence of cinema in this kind of social responsibilities and this sensibility to the others and so on. So I believe really that that aspect is quite important, and I have no knowledge in different countries that things are different. On the contrary, each time that I go to some place and know more people, and I feel that really the connection between us, apart all the differences and all the discussions you may have, but the connections between us are quite strong. Yes. There is something.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'd sort of swapped our views around. So
Okay, but just to finish my idea, when I go to a different place, I feel every time more that there is really these connections.
yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, what you were saying just made me think very much about representation. You know, what we see on screen, who we see on screen, who's making the films on screen and the stories they're telling is so important. And obviously things are improving. We're still not there yet, but we seem to be seeing many more films, you know, by people of color, for example, get wider releases, by people from the LGBTQ community as well. And then I suppose that's also filtering down into the groups that we're seeing. So we've, you know, over the last few years where we've changed our name to Cinema for All, where we sort of are serious about what all means. It does mean all. It doesn't just mean a narrow view of people. It means everybody. I just wondered if do you see that reflected globally as well?
Yes, I think that what moves someone to a film society or to cinema is at first moment curiosity, and then you get knowledge, and then you got challenged, and that is the importance of this let's say this way that you go through the film society to your formation as a person and as an individual, and then you are more aware and you are more sensitive, you are more open, and you are more engaged with tolerance, with all these values that we share. And I believe that when we go through this LGBT, for instance, or the Black cinema, the African cinema, the African heritage cinema, we are open to receive it, to respect it, and to easily live together with those realities and with those aspects of life, of everyday's life, that for many years were closed. Were closed inside the walls, inside small communities, and or even today in some countries not allowed, like criminalized. So I believe that is very, very important. One of the very important aspects that we have on our activity is to create awareness for these natural aspects of life, for these community members that were closed, that were a part of our conviviality of our days life. So I think it is very, very important to create awareness around those themes, around racism, around xenophobia, around migrants and migrant problems, around the the migrant communities in our neighborhoods, in our country. And I think cinema is a very important, a very powerful tool to get people together, to get people to know each other, and to get people to create the, of course, necessary, not tolerance, because everyone has the right to be. So it's not a matter of tolerance, it's a matter of respect. And in my opinion, I think, and this is very personal, I think that when we do this kind of work with these values and with these guidelines, more than values, because the value is a very personal thing, but with these guidelines, I believe that our activities become more inclusive, more important for the community, and sometimes helping community to deal with their own problems.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. We've sort of coming to the end of our conversation, unfortunately, now, but
Yeah.
sort of the last thing I want to focus on is the future, really. Obviously, I don't want to concentrate too much on the terrible situation that's going on globally. We've got other sessions in the conference that are going to be dealing with that, but obviously it's impacted very severely on the cinema experience and groups across the world. So what do you see as a hopeful future then for the Global Film Society movement?
Oh, that's a question. Believe me that I don't have answers for futurology questions, but I hope. I hope that we can work more closely at international level. And that the involvement of every film society, not only the federation, to national organizations, but every film society can take part of the world of film societies. IFFS, when it was founded back in 1947, during the Cannes Film Festival, had one main goal, that was to create opportunity to everyone cooperate, no matter was the side that each country was during the war. That was at the time the main goal of all the international cultural institutions. And the International Federation of Film Societies had that on mind, the founders have that on mind when they create the International Federation. So I believe that today, with all the facilities, the technological possibilities, and the way we can develop projects together. Okay, we had the Brexit, but before the Brexit, we are all together in Europe, and there is no ever, as we have been working together through European Media Program or through European Culture Program. And I believe that was at the time very important. So I believe for the future that we can first, apart all these, we can work together and we can open each other's house to the other. That is one aspect that I think is quite important. Nevertheless, the cinemas are opening some way around the world. Here in Portugal, the cinemas open with the film from our company, which was not a very good success of people, but it was a symbolical aspect that was to screen a national film, a Portuguese film, to open the cinemas, the first cinema that opened in the country after the pandemic. Yeah, and to make things like that, small steps, small but symbolical steps, we can work and we can develop the habit of cooperate at the international level. And that is the challenge, I believe. I want to have in our emails from the International Federation, emails from film societies from the UK or from Bangladesh or from Norway or from South Africa or Brazil, asking for a partner for this or for that. And we can make those connections. We can have, through the International Federation, to have the bridge to connect people. And I believe that if we can do that at the International Federation, we can really be important for the film societies, and we can achieve something that is important for us. The aspect, another aspect that I believe can be of capital importance in the future is the work that we are planning of the Cinesud 2.0, that is the platform for distribution of films. And that is something that is challenging, that we are starting to work out how things can be done. But I believe that can be also one important mean of connection of film societies from different countries.
I think that's a really nice place to end our conversation, Joao Paulo, sort of collaboration, connection, and I love the idea of building bridges across the world between film societies. I think that's a fantastic idea. So I'll be in touch with you about that and how we can facilitate that. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch and see you soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, just addressing one last word to every member of the Cinema for All, that is, go forward, move forward, think forward. That's another idea that I want to challenge you, and to challenge us to have one answer to that questions. And thank you very much. It was a very, very good pleasure, great pleasure for me to talk with you.
Great pleasure to speak to you too. Take care. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you.